Okay, hi everybody. So if I press this button, I'm going to see my slides. Let's see. All right. Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming today. One of the things we love about Madison, those of us who get to live here, is the food cart scene, especially on a nice summer day like today. I can't believe you would show a picture of snow, Laura. That made me almost want to cry. Anyway, this is what it looks like right now, where we all like to go out and eat for lunch. But not every cart gets to be on Library Mall where everybody's lined up like this. Sometimes the lunch rush looks more like this. And I feel like Phibbs is actually a great cart, and this is Capitol Square, so this probably was taken at like 2:30 in the afternoon. I don't want to insult an awesome local business, but the point is some carts have a great spot and some carts have a bad spot, and that has very direct business consequences in terms of foot traffic and how many people are lined up at lunch. So this raises a question: who gets to park their cart on Library Mall or Capitol Square, and who has to settle for a location with fewer people and fewer customers? So this is a real question, and as you can imagine, there is a certain amount of controversy about it. So this is a recent headline from the Capital Times about a lot of angry vendors complaining about the process by which the city assigns these permits. And maybe the surprising thing about this is that it's kind of a math problem. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that right now. So here's how it works. The city has a committee that ranks all 60 carts. That's how many there are that's how many there were last year. Might be a little more now. And then they rank them from 1 to 60. And then it's like picking teams. Like you choose your spot in that order. So cart number 1 gets to go first and choose a spot, and then it goes all the way down to cart number 60 getting whatever is left. So here's a picture of El Grito. I don't know if any of you guys have eaten at this cart, but it's like a very good Mexican cart, very well liked. And they came in 49th out of 60 in last year's ranking. I see some appalled faces by El Grito customers in the room. Yeah, that's how they felt too. And they wanted to know why did this happen, and that's sort of led to this outcry that you read about. So I got the raw data from the city. This is pretty cool stuff, and I really have appreciated the sort of cooperation between us and the math department and engineering department in the city with talking about this stuff, and started looking into this, and it's pretty interesting. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I learned about how the food carts are ranked. So one interesting thing is the following: there's a seniority bonus for carts. Okay, so if you've been vending food in the city of Madison longer, you get extra points on your ranking. And that might seem unfair, but let me emphasize, there is a reason for that. It's the people who eat at the food carts. You kind of like to know that you're going to see the same carts year after year. Like people want stability, people don't want turnover, and so they want there to be some kind of a bump for if you've been there for a while, you should have a little bit more of a right against the newcomer to stay in the spot where people expect to find you. But that seniority bonus is really big. So what I found when I looked at this data, the seniority bonus ranges from 0 for a brand new cart up to 7, which is the maximum number of points you can get. And now here comes the only actual math word that's going to be in this talk. The standard deviation, which is a measure of more or less how much do these rankings typically vary from each other, is only 3.1 points. That's a pretty small number compared to the rather large bonus you get for having been there a long time. So I looked at what would happen. For El Grito, what I said was 49th out of 60. They had a seniority score of 1, because they're not brand new, but they're a pretty new cart. With a score of 7, they would have been 15th out of 60. So that's a huge difference, and in some sense, the entirety of their low ranking was because they were new. Now, by the way, I said this was a math problem, but there's very few pure math problems out in the real world, right? I would say this is a math problem and a business problem. And you can't really think about it right without thinking about both sides of it. So I'm not going to say how much weight we should give to seniority. I'm just saying we have been giving a lot, and actually this year they're going to give less. Let me talk about one other issue, which is even a little bit deeper mathematically. Here you're actually looking at some of this raw data. I may be violating some kind of city law by showing this to you, but I did get rid of all the names of all the people and the carts, and it's pretty small. The only thing about it I want you to see is that there's a bunch of blank entries on this sheet. What that means is that not every member of the city reviewing committee visits every cart. And that is also something the vendors are not that happy about, because it creates an opportunity for unfairness. Let's suppose, for instance, that there's one reviewer who really doesn't like anything and gives everything a low score. If this guy visits my cart and doesn't visit my competitor's cart, I'm at a disadvantage, right? Because my average score is going to be lower by virtue of having been visited by this reviewer who did not visit another cart. And that's a thorny problem because it's really hard. If you have like a team of like 24 people, it's really hard to make sure every person goes to every single cart. Plus, it's just like a lot of cart food to eat in a short amount of time. People really don't want to do it. So the question is how to adjust for this. And one of the cool things about math is that there aren't that many truly new math problems. I mean, a lot of different looking problems are different under the skin. And in particular, when you see this problem of how do you adjust for the fact that different reviewers are rating different carts and it's not fair, this is a problem that has been much thought about by mathematicians, computer scientists, and engineers. Maybe most famously by Netflix, which has as an important part of its job to give estimated ratings for movies to say how good it thinks they are based on reviews that its users have given. But of course, the people who review one kind of movie may have, let's say, lower standards than the people who review another kind of movie. And so they're facing the same problem of comparing apples to oranges. If you just gave every movie the average stars by all reviewers, you would get some actually sort of rather screwy results. So this is such a famous issue for them that a lot of people call this the Netflix problem in math circles. They did a very cool business move about 10 years ago. They had a nationwide contest to say, we'll give $1 million to anybody who can improve our recommendation algorithm by 10%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's not so easy. It would be cool if I was going to tell you that Wisconsin won this prize. We did not. This is a bunch of other people, mostly the people you're looking at are from Bell Labs, but actually in the end, in a testament to the kind of cooperative nature of this kind of work, this prize was eventually won by a bunch of different groups joining together and sort of melding their algorithms. So I think 28 researchers ended up splitting this $1 million, of whom you see 7 here. And let me just say a little bit about who on our campus is doing this kind of work and how it plays out. So let me show you something about Project Next. It would be cool if my name were on this paper, but it's not, because I sort of came to this work a little bit later. But Rob Novak in the Department of Engineering and at WID is one of the leaders of this project. Lalit Jain is a PhD student of mine who worked in this project. And Project Next is a kind of next wave, very large-scale engine for what's called rating agglomeration, like taking a bunch of ratings given by a bunch of different people, usually in an internet context, and sort of combining them into an overall rating. And I think the most famous application so far is these guys have provided the new backend for the New Yorker cartoon caption contest. If you've ever seen this thing in the back of the New Yorker, they'll have a cartoon with no caption, and then people sort of submit what should the caption be, and then you got to figure out what's the funniest. Well, that's also a math problem, but not only a math problem. So what this does is, much like the cart, sort of takes a bunch of judgments from a bunch of people on the internet, which is funnier than which, and sort of combines them into an overall rating in some way that's reasonably fair. That wasn't actually the first thing they did. The first thing they did was a more high priority project. They created an app called Beer Mapper, which basically, using people's ratings of what kind of beer they like, created a map of the space of all beers, which you can see here with sort of IPA in one corner directly across from like wheat beer on the far side. So what I'd love to tell you is that we've completely revamped the city food cart system, and for 2017, it's going to be sort of completely redone on like massively crowdsourced Project Next style grounds. We are not there yet. We're sort of in the process of trying to figure out which kinds of math special sauce are useful and which are not for this problem. But I will say I've taken the first step, which is that I'm going to be one of the reviewers this year and learn how it works. So I'm getting trained on Monday. I think this is important actually. It's sort of a laugh line, but it's good for us in mathematics to sort of step outside and not just think of this as a pure math problem. If you try to do math on a data set that you really don't know how it was gathered and how it works, I think that's a failure mode for us. And so I actually think it's important for me to sort of see what this actually looks like on the ground before we start doing big data on it. So I'll stop there. Thank you guys so much.
Questions for Jordan Ellenberg? Any questions for Jordan? We have time for a question. Any questions for Jordan? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I'm the mic.
So for those of us who use surveys, evaluations in our context, and we want to solve for the Grinch reviewer problem, what's a practical layman's way to do that?
So first of all, one thing I want to be honest about is that there's a bunch of easy things to try before you try to do anything hard. So for one thing, you might not have the problem. For one thing, you might just find, oh, basically all my users are giving the same kinds of ratings and there are no Grinches. That would be a best case scenario. You can also do simple things like just take each reviewer and sort of subtract out their average rating to kind of move everybody to have the same average. There's some situations in which that's a bad thing to do, but it's a good first try. So one of the things is we always say, always try the easiest thing first. Sometimes we're very eager to be like, oh, let's use this hot new technique. And there's times when that's the right thing to do, but it's always good to try something easy before you try something hard.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
Next up is Paige Borot from the School of Business.